I got the key to the highway. And on the ride, I'm bound to girl. I gotta keep walking this highway. Walking most too slow. I eat my breakfast in California. I eat my dinner in Carolina. Oh, I'm gonna keep on walking this highway till I reach the end.
I say what? Oh, this is Brian. Call me eating my breakfast in California, eating my dinner in Carolina. Gardner coming to you from Ramble On Towers, Dungeon Studio in scenic Hesper, Ontario. You are listening to Ramble On Radio, episode number 56. Ramble On Radio is the only dedicated Led Zeppelin podcast on this or any other known internets. Be sure to go to rambleonradio.com for all your Led Zeppelin news and any links I mentioned during the show. You can subscribe to Ramble On Radio through iTunes. If you do, go leave a review, leave a star, leave 3 stars, leave 5 stars. Leave a review, let them know you listen. Listen on Spreaker and follow me, either Ramble On Radio or I Am Brian Dammit. Follow me on Spreaker, SPREAKER.com. And check out I Am Brian Dammit on YouTube. Follow Ramble On Radio on Facebook, have a Facebook page there, Google Plus, and at Ramble On Blog on Twitter. All right, so it's finally happened. I'm here with Dave Lewis from, is it Bedford or Bedfordshire, Dave?
It's Bedford in England.
Yeah. My daughter has a friend who's from Bedfordshire. That's why I asked.
Yeah, it's quite expansive around the area.
Okay. So anyway, Dave Lewis, editor of Tight But Loose, writer of many fine books, which we're going to talk about today, coming to us from England. So thanks for doing this, Dave.
That's absolutely fine. More than a pleasure.
Good. Glad to have you. We've been trying for ages to get this done, too.
I'm really sorry. It's been a busy time.
Yeah.
And I've been flying around all over the place trying to keep a track of everything that's going on. I've got my new magazine due out in about 3 weeks, so that's been pretty intensive. And obviously I had my Nebworth book out towards the end of the year, so it's been full on. And in the midst of all that, obviously we've had the Led Zeppelin reissue news, which is more than exciting. And yesterday was a most exciting day here when the news was broken on the BBC, as you probably saw.
Yeah, Sado, Robert says there's zero chance of a reunion now. You think that means something's up?
Well, I don't think it's any surprise. It's 7 years now since the O2. And I think, as Jimmy said in one of the interviews, if it was going to happen, it probably would have happened somewhere in between there. But, it's a difficult one. The O2 was a fantastic goodbye. If that is it, that is it. Everybody's a lot older now. If they came together and it wasn't as magical as it could be, what's everyone going to think then? They've got a lot to lose. I know Jimmy, he's always chomping at the bit, and, all of us, I'm sure, have got part of our wish to see it happen just because, you always want more. But maybe we've had enough, and maybe it just should be left, and I think Robert, obviously, in recent years has been very adamant that he's got his career and he's going to go with that. And to bring it all back together, even just to do one gig, if you remember at the O2, they rehearsed for something like 8 weeks, which is why it was so good. When you've got half an hour's rehearsal, you get, Atlantic 88 or Live Aid. When you do it properly, which is exactly what they did in 2007, you get what we got. So, it would take a chunk of time for that, even if they, announce they were going to do Glastonbury, which seems to be the big thing that everyone's talking about because Michael Eavis has said he thinks they'll do it. But, the amount of time it would take to get prepared for that, and that's a big gig. If you think about last year when the Stones did it, again, they had to make that work, and I think they did. And again, once you put yourself out there to a worldwide audience, reputations are at stake. At the minute, the image we've all got of Led Zeppelin is walking off stage at the O2, having played the night of their lives with Jason, and everything was great and cool, and that's what we're thinking about now. To unravel it again and bring out the old war horse, and so I'm sure we all would like to see it happen, especially for Jimmy. But everyone's getting older, and there's only so many things you can do. And in a way, the way I look at it is that we've got these reissues, which, is a significant situation and a significant release period that's going to run for, over the next 15 to 18 months. So is that not a reunion, in itself? I'd like to think it is, because we're all going to fall in love with this music again. Okay, they're not on stage, doing it, but you've got this amazing archive of material that's about to come our way. So I wasn't surprised. I'm never surprised at what Robert says. He's always a bit obtuse about it. He gets blown up and he becomes the bad guy. I don't. You've got to respect his wishes. And I think that's what people should do, and calm down and just enjoy what's going to happen from June the 2nd onwards. Because, as I said, these reissues are something big. And again, when the news broke on BBC yesterday and they had the interviews and the clips. The response has been phenomenal. I mean, I've been a very busy man in the last 48 hours, as everybody has, and it's in the press today. It was on every radio station here yesterday, and this was just 2 snippets of 2 tracks. There's a whole lot to come.
Yeah, that's true.
Over the next, 18 years. So, 18 months, I should say. So I don't think we should get over-panicked about the fact that Robert has said what he said. I don't think it's any surprise. Everybody wants everybody to come back. Everybody wants to try and relive their youth again. But it's not 1969. It's just not. It's not even 2007. We've moved on, and I think it would be very difficult. It would take a chunk of everyone's time to make it work. I'm not saying it couldn't work. I'm not saying I wouldn't want it to happen. And never say never. There may be a reason for them to come together, just as there was in 2007 with Ahmet. So I think if there's a reason, maybe. But if not, well. We've got a great time coming, and I think we should revel in that.
Yeah, I agree. I've long been saying I think Jimmy's gotten a little too old for it, actually. And
I probably slightly disagree with that, because again, with Jimmy, he can turn his hand to do anything when he wants to do it. And again, I know there's this thing about he hasn't played for a considerable amount of time. Everybody's waiting, or maybe not waiting, and think it's done and he's retired, if that's the word you want to use. Jimmy could turn around next week and play a week of gigs, and it would be brilliant, because that's what he's like. He's a creative, performing arts person. All right, at the minute, or in the last few years, he hasn't adapted himself to do that on a stage, but it's not as though he's not been busy, and he's very content with his life. And again, I don't think we owe Jimmy Page anything. He's done it. I mean, if he never ever made a note of music again, it's done. And it's hallowed, and it's genius, and it always will be. I respect Jimmy to have a life that he wants to have, and he's 70 years old, and he looks great, and he's having a great time doing what he's doing. He's very proud of what he's done with the Led Zeppelin reissues. You've only got to look at how keen he's been to get out there and explain to people what this is. This isn't just a few outtakes they've found to tag on a few albums. These are companion audio discs, as they're being called, which are going to tell you and unravel the creative process that underwent those songs all those years ago. And the fruits of delight in that for every fan, is going to be pretty massive, because you've only got to hear yesterday when they played The Whole Lot of Love. That was just enlightening. Suddenly you've got no chorus, you've got a different vocal, and as Jimmy explained, all those layers that went on afterwards made the track what it is. But to hear the evolution of it, well, if that doesn't make your blood pulse a little bit more, you can't be pretty cooling, as they say. For me, I just think, and I think for many fans, and most fans that understand what makes it tick, this will be the Holy Grail, because it's the creative process, and when it comes to that, there's no finer master at making that work than Jimmy Page, because he was the producer of this music originally, and I think the fact that he's gone back and worked so hard and found this stuff, you know. And again, there are some surprises. You know, I know, again, the message boards have been alive with why hasn't he done that? Where's Bath 70? Where's this? Where's that? He can only work with what he's got, you know, and looking at the first three, and we don't know what's ahead yet. He's keeping that very much under wraps. But I think so far as I can see with the first three, so good. Okay, Zep 1 is the Olympia show, but, you know, that deserves to be heard in, you know, the quality that he wants us to hear it in. Are there other outtakes of Zep 1? Well, you know, we had Baby Come On Home. I know there was those, you know, bootlegs of Babe, I'm Going to Leave You and such like. But I think he's at pains to move away from that. I don't think he wants this reissue program to be full of bootleg stuff that people's heard. There's going to be one or two crossovers, you know, if you look at Jennings Farm Blues, which is in there. But I think he's very keen and very mindful of what's out there, and has tried to mine something completely different. And certainly no one would have heard Whole Lot of Love like it was yesterday in the snippet we heard. No one had heard Keys to the Highway, Trouble in Mind, which, you know, was done at the end of the session of Hats Off to Roy Harper. So all of this stuff, I think, is, you know, is fantastic, and we really should be saying hats off Jimmy, because I think he's done a fantastic job. Yeah,
so far anyway. Yeah. Did you even know that Keys to the Highway existed?
No, I didn't. I didn't. Again, if you go back to the bootlegs, Blues Medley, which was the thing that was on Studio Days, I think, when it came out in 91, was similar to that, and you had this Fixing to Die, just a pair of them, you know, Robert's singing through a box amp, and very much in the sound and vein of Hats Off to Roy Harper. So I knew that existed, and I've been much bootleg, but this has obviously come at the end of another reel that he's found, because a lot of this, I think, has been him wading through, you know, however many master takes he's taken. Anything marked Led Zeppelin 3, he would have waded through.
Yeah.
And I think that's where some of the fruits of this has turned up. And again, it has been a 2-year search, you know, to get where it's got. So no, I didn't. And, you know, I don't know anything about Ya Ya, which is the track on Zep 2, which seems to be an intro and outro. Obviously, that's a work in progress. And I'm sure ahead that, you know, that you can only wonder what delights on Physical Graffiti or you know, wherever. You know, I do think, you know, even the alternate versions, it's easy to say, oh, well, it's just an alternate version, but you know, when it comes to Led Zeppelin, you know, an alternate version is going to tell you, you know, as much as the official one. Not that these are there to replace the official ones, because I don't think they are. They're there to complement them, you know, and I think Jimmy, again, is going to be at great pains to explain that. This is not a replacement for a Whole Lot of Love. It's a complement and a mirror image, if you like, of what they were working on at the time. So I think that's what's so great about it. It's not a throwaway. I mean, millions of bands have had reissues out with extra tracks on, but to do it in a tasteful manner that actually explains to your audience what we were doing, where we were at that time, and as Jimmy has said, it's like looking through a portal and seeing where they were in 1970 or 69 or whatever year it's going to be. So I think, you know, there's been a lot of integrity brought to this in the usual Jimmy Page fashion, and that integrity was certainly seen yesterday in the clips and the interviews in, you know, on the BBC. So you know, I think we're in for a treat. I really do.
Yeah, I agree. It's looking. I wasn't so sure about the stuff on Led Zeppelin 2. I was looking at it and go, I don't know. But after hearing A Whole Lot of Love yesterday, I think I'm changing my tune.
Well, you know, if you look at something like, I think there's an instrumental verse of Thank You, you know, and I think he plays a box guitar on that. And to hear that really clearly, I think will be a revelation, you know. And I know, as I said yesterday when I was talking to people, it is a bit like moving the furniture around in your house. You know where it is, you know what you're sitting on, but suddenly it's moved, and it's a bit, you know, it's a surprise. You know, I think that element of surprise is going to be very, very enjoyable when we hear this stuff. And again, you know, it's all to come. Yeah, you know, at the minute we only know what the tracks are. We know that there's a Moby Dick, you know, and there's an instrumental version, Bathroom Sound, which is out on the tiles, and you know, a lot of this stuff has been talked about over the years, but the fact that it's been produced and discovered by Jimmy in the way that he has, you know, I'd say trust in Jimmy Page, and I think if people do that, they're going to have a ball with this stuff.
That sounds like good life advice too, actually. Trusting Jimmy. What would Jimmy do?
Yeah, I just think he's so pleased that he's done this. You know, and again, and there was a comment he made yesterday about he'd rather do it himself than anyone else do it.
Yeah.
You know, let's get it out there. You know, nobody's getting any younger. I think, you know, the sense of immortality about any of the rock stars that are now at the age they're at. You know, let's enjoy it while we can. And again, as I said, and I will continue to say, it's an opportunity, you know, to fall in love with these albums again. You know, and I think we all know where we were when we first heard, you know, Led Zeppelin 2 or whatever, but there's a timeless freshness about them. Just on the remastered albums, I mean, that's going to be exciting in itself. And I know, again, there's been lots of talk about what's the best version and, you know, the stuff that was done for iTunes last year. You know, but that's going to be great in itself. There's vinyl to come. The packaging looks brilliant. I mean, I think the books that they've worked on in the deluxe box versions look fantastic. You know, there's only so many times this can happen, and you've got to say, really, this must be, in terms of the catalogue, the last, you know, big hurrah, if you like. You know, we've had the remasters in 90. We had, you know, Mothership, and we've had other stuff through the years, BBC Sessions, etc. But this, I think, with the catalogue, is the last chance to do it right with the formats that, you know, exist today. And again, the fact that we're going back to vinyl, you know, I'm a massive vinyl enthusiast. I think that's how this music is heard best, and it's going to be fascinating again to hear them and just look at them. And again, you can just look at the way it's been done. The packaging is, you know, the way the sleeves have been done. You know, there's this sense of specialness about whatever Led Zeppelin puts his name to. And collectively, again, I think with the reissues, you know, they've done it absolutely right. And, you know, I just think it's going to be a very fascinating period.
Yeah, I agree. It's going to be a good couple of years. Let's move on to your books.
Sure.
I reread the Nebworth book just for this interview. So, mind you, I have the older copy. So what's new in the new one? You re-released it, and there's 40% more?
I felt there was a sense of unfinished business last time. And when we did the Feather in the Wind book, the design that I was working, the guy I work with, Mick Lowe, does all the design for TBL. Well, we just looked at it and thought, well, why don't we do it again in the Feather in the Wind style, so we could bring in full colour. And it seemed a good idea to go back to the text and look at it again. So I added more personal memories. There were more interviews. You know, there was about 40,000 more words. And I just think the layout was lent to the way that we'd done the Feather in the Wind book. So you get the sense of being there. And again, you know, with the pictorial content that went in, things like the sound check pictures, the Copenhagen warm-up pictures, it was, you know, it was too good a chance not to make that work in a much more visual way. So that's why I wanted to do it, and it took a long time to do. It was literally starting again. You know, I consider the Nebworth book a new book. It's not an update, and it took a long time to do. But I think what I was trying to do is capture, well, definitely the spirit of the times, because I think you asked many people in England where they saw Led Zeppelin, and it would be at Nebworth, because it was a huge coming together of their audience at that point. And then again, you've got many things going on and many interesting facets going on. Obviously, where Led Zeppelin stood in the music market at that time, and with punk rock coming in, which, you know, was affecting the way things were in England, particularly the new wave of British heavy metal bands coming through. You know, they had a lot to lose, again, when they played those two shows in August 79, and they pulled it off, you know, by and large, you know, and when it was good, it was as good as it ever got, and it was pure Zeppelin theatre, as I often say. It was just, it just felt right again, and it should have been the springboard to the next era. It's a terrible shame that it wasn't, because in England, I think we really felt Led Zeppelin had overcome all those hurdles. They had something to say still. You know, they could cope with being in the marketplace of punk rock or whatever, and even though they were being called, you know, dinosaurs of rock, fundamentally, a lot of the punk artists really liked them. I mean, you know, I know the Clash had a begrudging, you know, respect for them, and certainly the Sex Pistols, because Zeppelin was musicians. They were class musicians, which you can't, whatever age or whatever type of music you like, you can't get away from that. From it being, people like James Brown's drummers or whatever, but people who, in other bands, I've always loved what Led Zeppelin have done, and it was the same then. So the fact they overcome it was great, and it was great to put something out there that said this is what was happening in 1979, that this is the way it was. This is the last, again, it was the last chance in England for people to see them. And it's a great story. It is a great story how they came together, and all these people from all over England and from the US who came to this, one gig and then the one that was added, something like 300,000 people. And for a lot of people, again, it was the first gig. It was a bit of a rites of passage, really, for a lot of people who were just, 16 or 17 and travelled out there. And there was lots of stories to be told. I think it was definitely a lot of people's growing up of finding this music. I mean, if you were into Zeppelin at 15, so when they played Earl's Court, you were 19 when they played Nebworth, so you were a bit more grown up. You could go out and do your stuff on your own, and that's what many people did. And there's great stories in there. I think it's like they're great, almost war stories of getting through the 3 days, because it was very different to the way festivals are run now. The conditions were not good in lots of ways, as you will read. And just, actually, the bill, the support acts weren't that brilliant. Not that it really mattered, because most of us had only come for Led Zeppelin. It didn't really matter that Keith Richards and Ronnie Wood were there. That was a side thing that we all were waiting for Zeppelin. And as you read in the book, I was there. I reported on it for Type of Loose in a very rose-tinted fashion. I was 23 years old. And I don't regret that, or it's what I saw, and what you saw when you were that impressionable was, the second coming almost. It was a very special thing. So I'm proud of the Nebworth book. I'm glad we did it again. It took a long time, and I think the end result is great. And I think anyone touches that book is, again, with something I always try to do in my books, is to take people there. He's trying to take people to the core of what was going on, as I did with the Feather in the Wind book for the Over Europe gigs, which I was very lucky enough to be there. So, and I'd like to do it ahead with Earl's Court. I think that that's the next in line. I'm not quite sure where that's coming yet, but it certainly will do. It's another one that I want to do and stop and say, look, this is what was happening. This is how it was affecting their audience. This is where they were at the time, and visually, you can represent that, in a book. So that's what I'm trying to do, and will continue to do. I think it's got a niche. I think the Type of Loose books have got a good niche that people have bought into, and I think that will continue. So for anyone who hasn't got the Nebworth book, it's a worthwhile book to get.
I agree. I recommend it all the time on this program, as well with Feather in the Wind, because I think they go together so well. They're like companion books. Yeah,
I think so. It's interesting that I did Feather in the Wind first, and then we went back to Nebworth for the second one. But again, the story of Europe is a great story, because again, it was a very different Led Zeppelin that walked on stage in Cologne or wherever to the one that walked off stage at Nebworth. Many things had happened, even in the 9 months that were between that, and and they were all a bit fragile, and they didn't really know which way it was going to go, and they were trying to find a foothold, and at times it was very inspired. I mean, Train Kept On Rolling. Some of the versions of Achilles, it wasn't always A1, but it was enough to say we're still here, we've still got something to say. And I think had they gone to America in the September, October, which was the plan, I think it would have had a whole new wave again, and we'd have gone into the 80s, with a Led Zeppelin that could still function. And again, I think the Feather in the Wind book stands as the story of the last months of Led Zeppelin, told from a very close proximity. I was very lucky to be in the midst of it all, at the side of the stage, seeing those gigs, and other people did as well. So it was great to get their memories. And that's the type of thing I like doing. I do like getting to the heart of what had happened at the time, and to do that, you need to get the memories and the thoughts of people who were there, and that's something that we've certainly done with those books, and I would certainly try and do ahead. So So yeah, it's been, they're great books to do, and I hope people appreciate them for what they are. And it's a bit of a coloured industry. As you probably know, I do all the distribution. I literally do everything from writing them to packing them up at the end of it and sending them to the post office to get around the world. But that's what I do. Long may it rain. So and long may people get enjoyment from them.
Right, and you mentioned you're looking at an Earl's Court book.
Yeah, that's definitely on the planning. I want to stop again and return to those 5 gigs and tell the story of where Led Zeppelin were at that point and all the surrounding things that went on. So yeah, I mean, I'm aware that the 40th anniversary is due for next year, and I'm going to strive to get something out there. Again, the only problem I have, being a bit of a one-man band here, is I have to go from project to project fairly quickly. I have lots of people who help, contribute, but in terms of actually the pure putting it together, it's all done from here. I've just finished the magazine, which has, been a tremendous amount of work. Then, I'm producing 3 mags per year or per subscription, so I'm always looking ahead in a few months to do that. The website we have to monitor, and the Facebook and the Twitter, that just, those sort of things. When I first started the magazine, all those years ago, none of those forums or social medias were around. It was just a question of printing a magazine and putting it out there. There's lots of different things that go with it, and the levels of information and interest swallows up time. I mean, it's great stuff, but you really have to be on top of it. So I'm on the hubbub of all of that every day because there is so much interest. I mean, and I don't begrudge that for 1 minute. It's fantastic that we're in the middle of another high period of interest for Led Zeppelin. But again, I've been through peaks and troughs when there's not been so much interest, but we've always made it interesting. Turbulence has existed for 35 years and with a bit of a break, but particularly in the last 20 years, there's always been something. And I think that's the world of Led Zeppelin. It continues to evolve, and you can, there's young kids coming on board that weren't born when they finished, and there's young musicians that want to play like Led Zeppelin, and there's always that interest. It's it's a living, breathing thing, as I often say. It's always in the present tense, just as it was remarkably yesterday. I mean, one of the things I said yesterday was that for a band that played the last gig 34 years ago, to be on the BBC 1 o'clock news, which is a big deal over here, on a point of interest story about releasing unreleased material, is just phenomenal. I can only think of a handful of acts. The Beatles is one, obviously, and maybe the Stones are in there, but there's not a lot of others that, particularly over here, I think in America it's a bit different, has got that sort of standing and sort of interest that people buy into, and not just their core audience. People understand that Led Zeppelin is something special, and whether they're going to think, and with huge respect, that Iron Maiden are very special in 35 years, I don't know. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. But I do know that there's something about what Led Zeppelin represents to people that makes it very contemporary, and continues to, which is why you do what you do, which is why I do what I do, and why fans key into it all the time, young and old. And, I think it's an amazing situation. And there were days where you just realise how important it is, and yesterday was one. I knew that news was about to break on the BBC, and as I say, in England, that's a big deal. To have news stories on the BBC, for a band is, pretty phenomenal. And it ran throughout the day, and it just gained momentum to it. It was on every radio station. I mean, it tended to be the same things repeated. It was 2 tracks, and but it was fascinating, and it was one of those days where you just felt proud to be a Led Zeppelin fan, because you realised how much it meant and means not only to the people, to the musicians who produce the music, and that's where obviously Jimmy Robert, and John Paul Jones and John all those years ago produced this. Again, I could go back to say when I was at Earl's Court watching those 5 dates, did I ever know or dream that in 40 years the level of interest would still be as high, if not higher, than it was when we were turning up for those shows. So, it's a phenomenally powerful thing, and it goes on, and I'm very proud to be in the middle of it, and I certainly was yesterday, and I think other people felt that too, and they will do as the weeks build on to the release of this, stuff, and then beyond that, you can only imagine what the fourth album might have, or How's the Holy. So it's it's great stuff. It really is.
Yeah, it is. It is an exciting time. I agree. Let's get to the magazine. You mentioned the magazine a couple of times there. You have a new one coming out?
Yeah, I'm really pleased with the new one. This is the 37th issue. Obviously, we've got stuff revolving around the first three reissues. And Mike Tremelgo, who does the logs of the dates and logs of the tours, and I've been working with Mike for some years now, and he produces fascinating attention to detail. And again, this time he's looking at the early first US tour, and it's just fascinating reading it and seeing the impact they had from the moment they went over there, and Blue Iron Butterfly, a Freudian slip, Iron Butterfly off stage and Vanilla Fudge. It's fascinating reading that. So there's a terrific piece there about the first tour. I had a conversation with Joe Jammer, who was Jimmy's roadie for a period in '69. Again, a fascinating character, so that's really great. And all the usual stuff is in there. And I think it's a great period to clue into the magazine. I mean, again, I often state how important I think a physical product is, and Time of Lucy is one of the, if not the only magazine on Led Zeppelin that continues to do what it does. Again, when I did the magazine all those years ago, there was no internet, there was no other communication. Nowadays, there's hundreds and hundreds of websites on Led Zeppelin. There's information you can get for free at any time. It's not always accurate. It's not always of good quality. I would like to think that the material that I produce in the magazine is of lasting quality, can be reread, can be stored. It is a collectible. Each one is on a limited run. I don't produce thousands by any means. And I'm very proud again that we're still out there and we're still doing it, and it's still a physical product that that people can buy into. It's very easy for people to think they've got every piece of information to hand, and obviously the difference between my stuff and the internet is you do have to pay for it. But I would like to think you're getting value for money for what I do, and as long as people keep buying it, I'll keep producing it. And it's a great period. It's a great time to have a magazine out because, again, I think this is going to be a bit of a summer of Led Zeppelin. And I think the new issue is really going to put you in the zone for that, and aid your enjoyment of what's going on with these reissues. And just it's great to have some content to read and reread. It's easy. If you look at websites, websites are for browsing. Obviously the Time of Loose one is one slide, but you browse it and it's done. I'd like to think the Time of Loose magazine is a lasting, collectible, which is why it's great when people buy into it. As I said, it is very difficult to get people to part with cash, and it's not a great economic time. I completely understand that, but I think people understand that what they get with the magazine is something lasting, and tangible, and so it's great. It's great fun to do it, and it's certainly something I want to keep doing. The subscription base isn't massive by any means, but and I'm always looking for new subscribers and people to understand what we do. There is a physical effort that you have to do to buy this magazine, and you do have to go online and buy it. The days of it being in shops, in Tower, or wherever, long gone. So people have to make an effort, but I like to think, it's that old-fashioned thing of actually waiting for something to come through the door. I'm an old school when it comes to this stuff, and maybe a lot of my audience is as well. We remember what it was like waiting for a Led Zeppelin album, and again, I think it's the same when it's something you really want. So when the magazine is out there, I think people realise, it's worth the wait and it's worth the investment, and you are buying into something. And I do try and make the content really special. I go to great pains to get to interviews, to produce copy, to have people that are producing things that are really interesting. And I think this is an exceptional issue. It really is. And I think it's a timely moment for it to come out. And it should be available in about 2 or 3 weeks' time, and I think people are going to really enjoy this one.
Good. Yeah, you mentioned, the difference between websites and magazines. I find websites really don't lend themselves to longer pieces. And I think you always seem to have something in the 2,000 to 3,000 word range that's excellent.
Yeah, I've been very conscious of moving the style of the magazine and the content away from things like repeated set lists and also trying to obviously complement news items with more weighty pieces, because again, the thing with the news items, there was a time where the news was the news, if you like, and whenever it came out, the news was still sort of contemporary. But nowadays on websites, there's news. If Robert Plant announces a tour of some sort, it's going to be on a website, so it isn't a lot of worth me putting a lot of that into the magazine. There is news items, there's a news summary, there always is, but it's great to do things that we've done, like we've done things like trying to find out where they played their first gig in '68, which is a great piece that Mike Tramaga worked on with me. We got Nick Anderson, who's a massive vinyl collector in the UK, and he's done great pieces on the Led Zeppelin Turquoise album and the first album, Why Is It So Rare? And I think that type of analysis is what people really enjoy. I mean, I'm a big reader of magazines. I like Mojo, I like Uncut and magazines like that, Record Collector, because I like longer pieces, as you rightly say. I'll snap into the classic log website or whatever Zeppelin website and see what's going on, but it's not something I'm going to look at for hours. I'd like to think the TBL magazine is something that people can really get their teeth into, if you like, and get something out of. And again, something I always say, I want people to go back to the music with a fresh sort of perspective. He's built, I write it with the soundtrack of Led Zeppelin. I'm always playing the stuff, and when it comes out, I think he's lending it, for people to sit down and put an album on and really get tucked in with the content and with some of the interviews that we've done. Last time it was the UK journalist Charles Sean Murray. That was an enlightening sort of interview about what was going on between Led Zeppelin and the press at the time. Joe Jammer is great because he was right there in '69. In '70 he was at the Bath Festival. So you're getting first-hand experiences, and I think that mixture of content, Mike Tremelga's logs, which take you back day to day to whatever tour, and this time we're in '69. You are literally going back to the ballrooms, that they played in at the Fillmore or wherever, and getting a taste of what was going on. And and it's not too difficult this day and age to get some of the unreleased stuff. There's plenty of sort of torrent sites and what have you, and a lot of people have still got the bootlegs anyway. So yeah, I think Time of Loose lends itself to a lengthier read. And that's something I've been pretty conscious of and continue to strive towards. And I'd like to think it is a bit of a mini book. It comes out 3 times a year or annually. And, every time I'd like to think there's stuff in it that will take people a while to read. Yeah, we've had some lengthy pieces. Again, one of the things we're doing at the minute, this guy called Andy Cross, who's analysing the 1975 tour, the US tours. And he's really well versed, and he's listened to the tapes, and it's great to go back and hear his viewpoint. And lots of people have got criticisms of that tour. Obviously, they weren't physically on peak form at times with Jimmy's finger and Robert's voice, but there were still some great times in there, and that sort of thing I think spurs people to go back and listen to the music. And again, TBL is almost a mirror of that music, and I always want people to be, as I am, inspired to go and listen to it, because, I listen to lots of music. I've got lots of great stuff I like listening to, but, I'm never too far away, from Led Zeppelin. I'm just not. That's what I do. And, that's what I love. So it's great. It is a labour of love. It's a passion. And I enjoy immensely trying to get people involved and understand exactly... oh, excuse me, too much passion. What this music has done and continues to do, and it really is great to do it.
Agreed. We're gonna have to. I think I'm gonna have to let you go and give your voice a rest there, Dave.
No, I
Okay.
Sorry about that, Dave.
No problem. That's all right. I feel the same after about half an hour of this myself, usually. Yeah. No, I had something in mind there, and I got myself distracted. Oh yeah, okay. So how do people order the magazine? How do people order the books?
Yeah, pretty simple.
Let's do that.
They just go to the Type of Loose website, www.typeofloose.co.uk, and it can all be ordered on PayPal very quickly. I aim to turn around any order on the same day, a bit like Amazon or whoever. All my books are on there, so it's easy done, and it's all on PayPal, and that's how it's done. It's just got to go to the website and you're right in there. So anybody who's listening to this who haven't sampled the magazine, I would say there's a special offer on the new issue. It's a special bargain price. So if there was ever a time to sample the mag, now is the time to do it. It's only £3 plus postage, and you can understand and get a feel of what we do. And I'm sure if you saw the magazine, you'd be back for more. It's obviously a big frustration to me that I can't get out there on newsstands. I'm not Rolling Stone. I'm not Guitar World. But if you make an effort, and I think you'll understand what we're doing and sample the magazine, you'll be back for more, because certainly I have a subscription base of people who always come back for more, because I think they trust me to produce something that's worthwhile, and I will continue to do that as much as I can.
And do you also have a special deal with Feather in the Wind and Nebworth together?
No, I do have a special offer on Feather in the Wind at a reduced price.
Okay.
There may well be some offers ahead. I'm certainly looking at that. There is an offer of a gift pack where you can buy 2 issues of the magazine with the Type of Loose T-shirt and the 10x8 print that we did. So again, another offer that if you want to buy into what Type of Loose does and get a feel of it, it's the gift pack offer, which is again on the website, and I think it's $12.99 plus postage. So you're getting quite a bargain pack of products, and you can understand what we do. So, I think with the magazine, it is a trial and error thing. I think once people have seen it, they'll be back. I think they do understand that it is something a bit special. It's 32 pages, it's full colour, it's brilliantly designed by Mick Lowe, the guy that it has a real feel of itself. There was a guy who said to me a few weeks ago, he said, I buy all the magazines, Mojo and, Uncut and Q, but Time of Loose is the one that I wait for because it's done with such passion. And I think, I haven't got a 40-man production team producing this. It's me and Mick who does the layout, and the people that contribute to it, like Mike Tramago, and Gary Foy does a lot of the admin. But so it is, as I said, it's a sort of cottage industry, but I think it's got a good feel about it, and I think people do trust me to come up with the goods and offer something worthwhile. So again, anyone that's listened to this and hasn't indulged, now's a great time, because I think you really would enjoy it. It would really put you in the zone for what's coming up with the 3 Led Zeppelin reissues. So I look forward to hearing from you out there.
Yes. And we should mention there is a 3rd book we haven't talked about, From Whisper to a Scream, a complete guide to the musical Led Zeppelin. That's on there as well.
Yeah, well, again, I have a whole history of doing Led Zeppelin books, and again, that's been a sort of long and winding road. From the Final Acclaim, which I did, if ever a book was unwisely titled, the Final Acclaim, which came out in 1983, which was like a best of the early Type of Looses, was the first book I produced with a very small company in England. It wasn't the Final Acclaim because there were many more. I mean, obviously that kicked off to doing the major reference book, which I long had an idea to do during the 80s, and that flowered with Led Zeppelin Celebration, which came out in 91. We then did Type of Loose Files, Celebration 2, the Concert File, which with Simon Pallet, which I did in 97, and then I did it again in 2005. So there's been a catalogue of those books, and Whisper to a Scream was a book, again, that we'd done in little different versions. We'd done a CD guide. But what the idea about that book was to try and have the whole of the catalogue chronicled, track by track, which is something I did as far back as Celebration. and like bring it all together in a compact way where people could quickly understand what the catalogue was about. So, you know, if you were well versed with it, it was a great way to, as I always say, listen to that book. And it was also a great guide for people who are new to the music. That was something I was pretty conscious of. So yeah, I was really pleased with that. We did that. Well, that was now nearly 2 years ago. And we had the Mothership in there. We had How the Whistles Won. It came right up to date. It was right up there with the O2. It could well be at some point I may do an update, because once all this companion audio discs have come out with the reissues, there may be time to stop and look at that one again. So, you know, that's another one. I've always got a ton of projects on. Believe me, there's not enough hours in my day. There just really isn't.
I'm sure.
I could be doing this and am 25 hours per day, because it just goes on and on. And it's a pleasure. It's hard work. I can tell you, this is a very disciplined sort of way that I have to work to make sure these things are done, because I'm on many deadlines. And again, there's also lots of little freelance bits that I'm always doing. People do come to me a lot when it comes to Zeppelin, and there's often things that I get sort of consulted on, which again also swallows up time, but. It's what I do. I think it's what the good Lord put me down here for, and I'll continue to do it as long as people continue to read it.
Sounds good. I'm going to let you go, Dave.
Brian, it's been more than a pleasure. Apologies for my voice. I've had a lot of talking about Led Zeppelin this week, but it's something I like to do, as you probably gathered. And I'd just like to say thanks for all your support. And all the support of the people that are out there that buy the mags. Without them, I couldn't do it. As I said, it is fantastic that we're on such a high with it all. And I think we all feel a sense of pride. And, I know many, many Led Zeppelin fans. And, we all like what we like or do what we do. But it's one common thing is that we understand that this great music is inspirational. And it continues to inspire us every day. And long may it do so. And I think hats off to Jimmy in particular for doing what he's done in the last 2 years. And I just know, and I know it's easy, to criticise and say it could have been this, it could have been that. I just know that what he's done is going to be something significant, and I think we should really all enjoy this as much as we can, because this is the chance to really fall in love again with these albums. And I think the other thing that I sensed about it when I've been thinking about it and writing about it is that this stuff keeps us young. It makes us feel forever young, because it makes us feel like you're hearing the music for the first time. It genuinely does, and I think there's some exciting days ahead. Just hearing those little snippets yesterday, I mean, if that can't put a shiver up your spine, then, you must be dead. You really must be, because it's so exciting. And again, I think, the stuff that's to come, we can only speculate. But I think, he's done such a great job, and I know that we're all going to enjoy being Led Zeppelin fans again over the next few weeks, because he just keeps it fresh, and it just does sound like it was recorded last week. I mean, John Bonham's drums is what we really ought to, hone in on that. I'm sure there's going to be a real reawakening of just what contribution he made to the band. And when you're hearing these stripped-down versions, I think the synergy of Led Zeppelin is going to really shine. I just get the feeling that we're going to understand much more than we already know. And we know a lot. There's lots of stuff out there. But I think this audio stuff that's coming, complementing the albums, is going to really enlighten us. And again, just take us back to the music again. And I think everyone can get ready to party like it's 1969 and 1970, because we're going to have a ball with this. So let's do it. I think it's going to be great. So great to talk to you, Brian, as ever. And keep your time loose. Keep reading. Keep listening.
Take care. Thanks, Dave, and enjoy your summer of Led Zeppelin.
All righty, man. Cheers.
Bye. And that was Dave Lewis from Tape It Loose. And, I have a bad cold this week, and my voice keeps apologizing for his voice. But if I had talked for half an hour straight, I would have no voice left. So thanks to him, for nothing else, for carrying the program for me today. And a couple of quick things we mentioned. I got to run through this real quick. There was 2 interviews and 2 song snippets released on BBC yesterday, Wednesday. Robert Plant and Jimmy Page, and the material point is Robert Plant was asked, what are the chances that Led Zeppelin will perform live again, and his answer, 0. And as I said to Dave, which tells me something's in the works, because he's always said, oh, maybe this, and what he's really meant is no. So, but no, look, I've known all along, and I've not all along, but I've been saying for a while now, Robert Plant does not want to do this. He's decided point blank he doesn't want to do it. He's at that age where he's not going to do what he doesn't want to do, and that's all there is. But Jimmy Page was asked more or less the same question, and he said he calls it a wish phantasma. He says you should not be living in hopes and dreams. Let's look at the facts. The O2 was 7 years ago. There hasn't been any movement, so it's unlikely. I certainly don't want to be exhumed to do it. And as I said, he's past 70, and he hasn't been playing regularly. It's a lot harder to get yourself back up into shape and to get a guitarist into Led Zeppelin shape who hasn't been kept his practice up at 70 years old. I'm dubious. He is Jimmy Page, but I'm dubious it's doable or worth doing at this stage in his life. How's that? But he does says the interviewer pushed him, and he says, I'm not the one to be asking. I don't sing. I'm the guitarist. So, I mean, that's your answer, right? It's not him. It's Robert. And Robert says, no, it's not going to happen. And he also mentions he's as surprised as anybody else. Hasn't been a Led Zeppelin tour. But then they released 2 snippets of songs, a minute of Whole Lotta Love and a minute of Keys to the Highway. Whole Lotta Love is the remix that's going to be on the new album, and Keys to the Highway is also from the I think from the second album remixes, from the third album remixes. It's in the vein of Hats Off to Roy Harper, as Dave mentioned. Robert singing through the Vox amplifier, so he's got that old blues microphone sound going on. So those are the stories we were talking about. Those are the big stories this week. And that's next week. I'm going to think about this stuff a bit. I'm going to talk about it a bit more. So next week, that'll probably be what the conversation is. And I'm going to drop it here. Thanks so much to Dave Lewis. He's a brilliant guy. He knows his stuff so well. He's been doing this so long. And what a fabulous interview. You throw a question out there. And I made about 6 pages of notes. I just kept writing stuff as he was talking about. But then he would be on to the next thing, and I did. So he was fabulous. That's the way an interview should be. You know, I don't have an interviewer on, so you can hear me talk, right? So thank you, David. Thanks, Dave Lewis. Type It Loose. Go to typeitloose.co.uk. www.typeitloose, all one word, .co.uk. I'll put a link on the webpage. He hasn't released this year's magazines. You buy a subscription of free magazines for the year, and you could get the first one is out in a couple of weeks. So if you order now, you get the first one as it comes out. And he says he's got a special deal on this magazine. You can get a cheaper price. Plus, buy his, and I love his books, so can't recommend them enough. And that's it. That's Ramble On Radio, episode, 56? Does that sound right? Ramble On Radio, episode 56. Check out rambleonradio.com for notes on this week's podcast, Led Zeppelin news, reviews, any links I might mention, including I'll throw a link up to Dave's Type It Loose. Also, those songs, the song clips we mentioned, I have links to those. The interviews I just mentioned, we have links to those. Follow Ramble On Radio on Facebook, Google+, and at Ramble On Blog on Twitter. Be sure to let me know what you thought of the interview. And you can subscribe to Ramble On Radio through iTunes. Listen to it on Spreaker. And check it out at I Am Brian Dammit on YouTube. Leave a review on iTunes. Follow me on Spreaker. Do all that stuff. It helps put us in front of more ears. Thanks for listening to Ramble On Radio. And I will be talking to you next week.
Switch off the internet.